Hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar today. I'm just going to wait a few moments for people to make their way into our room to join us on this glorious Wednesday afternoon. And then we'll go. And as you come in, please let us know, where are you dialing in from? It's always so fun to see how spread out all over the world all of our participants are. So please just share in the chat. Let us know where you are. I can tell you I'm in Copenhagen. Copenhagen is unseasonably sunny, which is a good problem to have. We are all very, very pumped up on vitamin D. Ooh, Germany, Sweden, Scotland. Ooh, London, Oslo, Finland. Oh, amazing. Amazing. Okay, I think with that, I think we've hit critical mass. I am going to start our introduction and kick off our webinar today, which is on the glorious topic of CSRD. So a very quick intro to me. My name is Taylor. I'm a product marketer here at Normative. I'm originally from Seattle, but I've been living here in Copenhagen for about 3 years. I've been with Normative for over 2 years, and it's been a blast. I'm really excited to welcome you to today's webinar. We're going to talk about CSRD. I think that if you have been on the internet in the last few weeks or months, you've seen this everywhere. We know that everyone is talking about it. Everyone is writing about it. There are so many resources out there. But when we sat down to prep this webinar, what we really wanted to do was find content that was specific, create something that was action-oriented, and really present you with some tools that you could make progress on. So that's what our goal is today. Before we jump into the details, I just wanted to do some quick housekeeping for the webinar. We're going to aim for a 45-minute duration, just to respect your time, and that includes the Q&A. We will record this webinar, so look for that in your inbox after our session today. And as I said, we will be doing a live Q&A at the very end. So please use the little Q&A box in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen to submit a question. That's just the easiest way for us to track those questions and make sure that we're able to respond to as many as we can. And any that we don't get to, we will intake and we will respond after the webinar. And last but not least, we are always pushing to create better content and better webinars here at Normative. So at the end of the webinar, you will be pushed to a post-webinar survey. It shouldn't take more than a minute. Please take a moment to respond and let us know how we're doing and what you want to see, because we want to create webinars that you want to watch. So here we are. Here's everything that we're going to cover today. I'm going to kick us off just by talking about the basics of CSRD. I'm not going to give you a lecture. I promise that would put me out of my depth, but I want to make sure that while we're all gathered, we're really looking at the same thing. We're on the same page. What is CSRD? If you're a pro, I'll just give you a quick refresher. But if you're newer to this, then I'm hopeful I can provide some details that will be helpful. We'll then hear from our friend Sam Priest, who is joining us from PwC to talk about reporting best practices. We'll switch over to my colleague Gustav Svensson, who will join us to talk about the product side, what you need from a carbon accounting perspective to successfully get those environmental metrics of CSRD. And then we'll move over to my colleague Ross, who will talk about how Normative supports our customers on CSRD compliance. And as I said, a Q&A at the very end of the session. So if you have a question for any of these smart people, please add it to the Q&A tool and we'll get to as many as we can. So with that, let's just dive in. And I always do a quick intro to Normative just so that you know who we are and why you should listen. At Normative, our mission is to make known and reduce the sustainability impact of all the economic activities on the planet. We were founded in Stockholm in 2014, and sustainability is really core to our practice. We are now about 170 teammates spread in Stockholm, Copenhagen, and London. Second, science is the inspiration for everything that we do. We make partnerships in product with collaborations like with the SME Climate Hub, and all of that helps us to build a product that's both relevant for the industry, but also is founded on a really strong principle of science and research. And then finally, from a business perspective, our team is unique in that we come from many different backgrounds. We have everything from the disruptive scale-ups like Pecan as well as some of our colleagues from places like SAP. And that's not to mention all of the amazing scientists and researchers that have joined Normative to make sure that science, as I said, remains core to our practice. And whatever we're working on, we strive to make carbon visible, because we know that when carbon is visible for everybody, then that data can be used for all sorts of initiatives. When you can see carbon, you can reduce and lead to net zero. And I was kind of teasing the next webinar. I dropped in a few screenshots from our latest features. These are where you can actually see the emissions reduction opportunities in your carbon footprint. And it's a little deceptively simple, but when we show emissions and reduction in these dashboards, it makes it easy for every stakeholder to get on board and understand what are those opportunities with emissions reduction. And as I said, I'm giving you a sneak peek today, and our plan is May webinar will be focused specifically on reduction. And so if you're interested, we'll share a link to sign up at the end of the webinar today. And how do we make carbon visible? As I said, we do that through a foundation of science. As I always say, climate change is a kind of scientific problem. We understand it through the lens of science. And so to fix it, to respond to it, and to measure carbon, the best way to do that is with really, really robust scientific tools. When we serve our customers, we do so with responsive insights. We want insights and carbon information that really reflects what their actual business looks like. Because if it's not reflective of a real business, then you can't really do anything with that data. And then, of course, continuous collaboration, which we understand is the ability to share those carbon insights with others, whether that's your business leaders, employees, teammates, stakeholders, your suppliers, so that you can make the carbon visible and then start collaborating with that data. When you can collaborate, you can reduce, you can agree, you can build initiatives together, and that's what's super exciting about all of our work in this new space that we are all in together. And here we go, the CSRD basics. First, I wanted to do a little poll. I wanted to just ask our audience, are you ready for CSRD? Tell us a little bit about where you are on your journey. Maybe you're confident with the governance fields, but not the environmental fields. Let us know. And this is a survey where you can respond to as many of the questions as you want, and really let us know what you're thinking. And you can access this again in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen next to the Q&A. And I love these polls because we get to see exactly what you all are thinking about. So as I watch it coming in, the biggest response is the one, I could use more help. That is almost half of our audience. Noted, good thing that you're here. Behind that, we have about 20% that says they're ready with the environmental metrics. And we have about 12% who say, what is CSRD? So keep voting, keep letting us know. But this is really great information for us to better fill in the future content that we prepare for you. And it's still about 50% who are saying, I could use more help. So again, you're in the right place for some information. So here we go on CSRD. This is again where I am going to try and give you just the basic overview. If you asked what is CSRD, those 12% on the poll, this is what CSRD is. It's called the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Initiative. It's a broad reporting of environmental, social, and governance metrics, and it's aligned with the EU taxonomy. And the EU taxonomy is basically this universal categorization system so that every business's report can be compared apples to apples. You may have also heard of an acronym called ESRS, and that is the specific set of reporting requirements that are mandatory. Another acronym is EFRAG, which was the kind of public-private body that put together those reporting requirements. And then the WHO, the European Commission, proposed this legislation, and the Commission is Europe's politically independent executive arm that proposes and enforces legislation. For me, this is kind of a pop quiz because I'm an American and I had to learn a lot of this information about the European political system. It does seem to work pretty well. Once that legislation was passed by the EU Parliament, each country then, of course, has to implement CSRD within their own country's administrative and legal systems. And if you are at all interested in what legislation might be relevant for your business, whether it's CSRD or beyond, we have a carbon legislation tracker at Normative that my colleague Michelle is going to plop into the chat. All you need to do is answer a few simple questions and you'll get a really great overview of what legislation matters for your business. So then where is this applicable? This is the easiest one. So it's Europe. It's 50,000 businesses that are either based in Europe or have significant operations within the EU. When? So this is abroad, 2025, 2026, 2027, and 2029. And this is kind of rolling out to smaller and smaller businesses. It starts with those largest businesses, the ones that were previously mandated. I think there's 10,000 of them previously mandated to share some of this information. It will then apply to more medium-sized businesses and then SMEs. And that will gradually work to be reporting in 2029. Why? I think this is probably the most interesting question. So a huge goal of CSRD is to provide visibility. By making these environmental and social and governance metrics more visible, it just puts a greater emphasis on them. It means that consumers and investors can use this information when they're making purchasing decisions or investing decisions. And that comparability is also important, and that's really powered by the EU taxonomy, because it means that me as a consumer, I can look at the reports of two different companies, and it's not just like a mishmash of reported metrics, but it really is standardized. I can compare one field to the next, and then I can make a better decision. And then, of course, hopefully it goes without saying, but it's also about sustainability. As an American, again, I look to the EU for leadership here. This is a place where the EU takes so many great initiatives to be more sustainable and lower energy use and emissions. And this legislation will slowly but surely begin to hold businesses accountable for those emissions. And then how do you do this? How do you respond to CSRD? That's the topic of the rest of our webinar today. One thing that I think is really clear, regardless of how you approach CSRD, is the importance of a hybrid approach. And I think you'll probably never hear this from a marketing person, but I want to be pretty clear about what Normative doesn't do. We are a specialist. We're a carbon platform. And for us, we focus really hard on meeting the emissions requirements with that detailed carbon reporting. That means it's audit ready. We bring that environmental expertise. And my colleague Gustav will talk about that in just a few minutes. But when you're building your toolkit of specialists and tools that you'll use to respond, you also need some consulting expertise. You also need some of that support to make sure that the social and the governance requirements are done really well, that they're done in a way that you feel confident and compliant. But regardless of the toolkit, you should look for some core values. One of those things is transparency, that you know where the data is coming from. You know how the calculations are working. You know how the assumptions are being made. You also need the data quality and coverage. You need to feel confident that your solutions are capturing all of your data, all of your emissions. You don't want to be almost done reporting only to discover that you missed the whole category of the greenhouse gas protocol. And at the same time, you don't want vague data sources that might significantly over or underestimate your total emissions. As I said on the normative slide, you want those emissions calculations to really reflect the reality of your business. Because if you're not clear-sighted about where you are now as a business, there's really no way to move forward. And then, of course, it's important to think about how your partners and your tools, all of the suite of other resources that are available to support you. Because when you look at those resources, whether it's carbon removal investments, whether it's reduction planning, whether it is innovation and product design, it's that kind of holistic suite of resources that makes it possible to not just do compliance, but really push beyond, really take the data that you've collected through CSRD reporting and use it to take your business to the next level. And I will return to this theme at the very end. But for now, I am really delighted to welcome our friend, Sam Priest, who is a partner at PwC Sustainability. Sam, please give us a quick intro to yourself and take it away.
Thank you, Taylor, and a massive thank you to all of the PwC and Normative team who are already collaborating around the world on delivering amazing outcomes, both in the CSRD, but more broadly in terms of impact for clients and outcomes for the planet. So really excited to be here. As you said, I'm a partner in the PwC sustainability team. We've got an incredibly talented and large team around the world. My focus is supporting clients to understand what they must report on from a sustainability point of view, what they have to do. And there's a number of reasons for why they might need to do that, which I'll touch on later. I'm also helping on understanding how they do that efficiently and do it to the quality that's required. And then particularly on how they go about delivering their reporting robustly, using technology and efficiently, with the level of quality that they need to get to. And this is where our collaboration with Normative really comes into play. So in this session, I'm going to talk to you very briefly about three things that I'm seeing in terms of best practices for CSRD. The 5 key elements that we're seeing at the moment around CSRD delivery, some tips and insight into where to get started and where to focus, and give us some thoughts on why it's valuable or maybe even essential to have consulting support. And you might think as a consultant I would say that, but I'm going to give you some perspectives as if I were one of our clients on why that's valuable. And then finally, I'm going to direct you to some more detailed PwC insights and information and invite you to attend some of our detailed deep dive technical sessions that we're holding. They're very solution oriented and they're very focused on outcome. So hopefully you'll join us on some of those sessions. But if you want to read around on some of the acronyms that Taylor's spoken about or some of the detailed process, our insights that we'll share with you in this webinar and also in the follow-up, will give you all of that detail that you'll need to get into. So I'm going to go into the core of it. So the 5 key elements that I'm seeing at the moment in the CSR delivery space. And I'm not talking about the components of CSRD here. I'm talking about the key activity areas that you should be thinking about. CSRD has a lot of different component parts, but what we're talking about here is the things that you should be thinking about. So the first of those is training and awareness. This is a complex subject, but more critically, it's going to require a number of stakeholders to be involved from within your organization, because the information is going to come from different places. You're going to need to build it into your existing business practices and processes. And more importantly, this is an opportunity to get everybody engaged around sustainable outcomes. And so it's a really great way to pull everybody together and get behind your strategic objectives and your outcomes that you want to achieve as an organization. So the first thing I'd recommend is some high-level training and awareness around this topic. The second is scoping. So understanding what you need to do and when you need to do it. So those are the things that you're required to do by the legislation, CSRD, but also other legislation, but also thinking about what others, your customers, your suppliers, and maybe your investors are looking to or need to report on, because they're going to be asking you for information too. They're going to need to report on CSRD, and part of the structure of this is they will be coming and asking you for information as well. So that scoping exercise will give you real clarity on what you need to do and when. You can further refine that using a double materiality assessment. This is the process of understanding what topics are material to you, the impact you're going to have on your business, and the impact your business is going to have on others. So doing that allows you to really zoom in on the topics that are critical and should be focused on in terms of the quality and depth of the reporting. The third thing is the data evaluation, understanding where you currently are on your data journey and any gaps that you might have in data points that you might need to disclose under CSRD. So this will give you a really good picture of those areas that you need to work on to go and collect additional data or even improve the quality of the data that's there already. And it's a really good opportunity to reevaluate those metrics and data points and the processes that you have to collect them. The final thing I'd say you should do is an implementation plan. Seems obvious, but this is a complicated multi-stakeholder activity, and in some cases it's triggering significant transformation in our client organizations. But having a clear plan about what you're going to do and when and who's going to be involved at this early stage or at an early stage in the journey is really helpful. It helps you get the right resources in place, and more critically, it allows you to engage with others to understand what best practices and tools and solutions are available to you to accelerate your journey. So in terms of getting focus, where to focus and where to get started, the actions I've just talked about will give you a really clear plan and really get you going. But I'd say one thing for me is carbon and climate is likely to be a material topic amongst most organizations. And arguably it's one of the most mature areas in terms of data and one of the best understood areas. However, don't assume that because you're already reporting in that space that you're going to have high quality information there, or it's going to be at the level or depth that you need for your CSRD disclosures, particularly as you're considering your value chain and you're looking at your scope 3 considerations. So I would suggest that's an area to really focus on, and having this conversation with Normative today will show how that can be accelerated. But for me, that's going to be an area that's going to be scrutinized. It's an area that's going to be evaluated, so worth investing time in reviewing where you're at. On the third point, so why is it valuable to have consulting support or even essential at this stage? Well, number one, there's a lot to do, and an extra pair of hands is always going to be helpful to help prioritize and really focus in on what you're going to be doing. Secondly, there's going to be a lot of decisions and judgments to be made. It's not fully defined, and things are evolving in terms of the regulations, but certainly in terms of the interpretation and how they're going to be applied. So it's really good to have a consultant's perspective and to bring in the insights from the other clients that we're working with, so you can see how others are approaching or answering and responding to the questions that are being asked by the reporting directive. The next thing, and really linked, is you need to start thinking about assurance. Assurance is a critical part of CSRD, and understanding what an auditor will be looking for, and the processes and controls and the information that needs to be disclosed at an early stage will really set you off in the right direction. Ultimately, you want to have a very strong outcome when you come to assurance, and setting things up right from the start is critical. And that refers to your data and your narrative disclosures that you're making, and also the systems and processes that you put in place. Final thing is technology could be your friend here, but it could also be a distraction, and it could also be something you head off in the wrong direction. So having a bit of consultancy advice or perspective on which ways to go can be really helpful at this stage. And at PwC, we have our own solutions, but we're also very keen to make sure that you're choosing the right options for you as an organization at the right time to give you an efficient and robust set of reporting data and a process to do that, to deliver that work efficiently. So those are the topics that I wanted to really talk about. As I said, there are more PwC insights available, and we're going to share some links to that, and that will give you some details on some of the thought leadership that we have going around. But I'll particularly point out the World Economic Forum IBC paper on energy demand, where we've identified 2 trillion in annual savings if implemented by the end of the decade, and a 31% reduction in energy demand in industry. So we're really targeting some key outcomes and savings for businesses, cost and energy, and obviously carbon. Also, we'll share some information on upcoming events and forums, and there's a good upcoming one in June on overcoming barriers to net zero transformation, helping you deliver on that journey. And as I said, a number of technical briefing documents, podcasts, and regular updates on the technical standards that sit there, and more critically, how to apply them in your organization. So we'll share that to you. And as Ross and others will talk to in a minute, we're collaborating very closely with Normative, and we're very looking forward to having conversations and understanding where you are on your current journey on CSRD. So with that, I'm going to hand back to Taylor.
Thank you so much, Sam. You are a wealth of knowledge, and it's a pleasure to listen to all of this. I'm really delighted to now introduce my colleague Gustav, who's on our product team here at Normative, who will talk a bit about the carbon parts, the emissions and calculation parts of this. Gustav, please take it away.
Thank you very much, Taylor. My name is Gustav Svensson, and I'm the Senior Product Manager for basically the calculation engine and the compliance team within Normative. Part of my job is to make sure that the data that we collect from our clients is calculated in the correct way according to CSRD and other standards, and that we can also output the correct data to our clients in our reports for themselves, and also for PwC to work with within this partnership. So the data that we collect, we will give you a report. You will find this within our product. It's a very simple report that you can just click, answer a few questions, and then we will gather the data and produce an Excel sheet showing all of the numbers that are relevant to your CSRD reporting, as far as us being a carbon accounting product and then giving this data to PwC to work with. So we gather and give you information on your energy consumption, the mix within that consumption, and the greenhouse gas emissions from scope 1, 2, and 3, and provide it within this report. And this report also has XBRL tag data according to the CSRD regulations. So you can share this data within your organization, but also with PwC or other stakeholders. And so you can compare this data and make sure that you are compliant in all the ways that you want to be. So one question we get a lot is regarding audits and regarding the quality of the data, making sure that this is very presentable for when you have an audit. And we have this option within our product that you can just go to the report section and choose audit as what you want to look at, and then select which part of your company, if it's just one specific country or division or the entire footprint of your company. And then again, download an Excel report with this data. And in this report, we show very detailed, through all of your activities, we show the source of your input, the database that you use, the methodology used, the conversions between currencies, inflation correction, anything you need to have to make your audits possible can be found in this report. And of course, this is super important to have very transparent data for yourselves and your stakeholders and all of the consultants that you might be working with to make this CSRD compliance. And last but not least, I want to show you a sneak peek of something that's available within our product, which is a way for you to see in real time the transparent data behind all of your activities, all of the calculations that we do. You can go into and click on your activities and see this very detailed data on how we calculated everything, what kind of databases we used, what the result was, and then compare it from within your organization and externally as well, to get this very detailed and much broader understanding of what your different divisions and parts of your company are doing and how it's affecting your sustainability work, and where you can find hotspots for where you can create some real reduction. Because we want to remove this black box of just having input and then having a result and not knowing what goes on in the middle. We want to show you exactly what we are doing with your data and just make you understand better how your different decisions affect your outcome and your sustainability work. Because CSRD reporting is very important, but it's only the first step. We work with reduction, and getting this better understanding of your own data enables you to find reduction in places where you might not have looked before. So this transparency and openness for you and people you work with is very important for us. So it's something we are very proud of, and as you can see, it's something that's already available within the product. So with that said, I would like to hand over to Taylor. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Gustav. It's amazing to see what the product is capable of these days. I am now going to introduce my colleague Ross, who's going to talk a bit about our approach to CSRD. And before I do that officially, Ross, just a quick shout out. If you have questions, please do drop them into the Q&A. We're getting some interesting and difficult ones, which is great. Keep it up. But please do share. Please do share. And with that, Ross, please give us a quick intro and take it away.
Taylor, thank you, and a good day to everybody in attendance. My name is Ross. I lead Normatives Partnerships and Portfolio Development. So allow me a few moments to introduce our proposition, a flexible approach towards CSRD readiness. We've developed a joint offering together with PwC, bringing together extensive consulting and compliance expertise, and underpinning that by robust and accurate carbon accounting and insights from Normative. As Sam, as Taylor, as Gustav discussed, we recognize that CSRD is a novel and it's a complex legislation. And on that basis, we designed an offering with three core pillars in mind. And the first is modularity. So we understand that our clients who seek support will be at various stages of their CSRD journey. Some starting really early, seeking to begin with enablement, training, and the need to navigate those very early steps. And other clients will be more advanced in that journey, and perhaps having begun scoping or double materiality assessment. Therefore, a modular design was needed here to give us the ability to meet our client where they're at in view of driving a lean and a focused path onwards towards disclosure readiness. And the second theme was integrity, an offering designed with integrity firmly at its core. And this comes in the form of the guidance and support from PwC in building solid governance and solid data collection practices. In simple terms, the right things done transparently. And we unify that with Normative's deep scientific integrity and insights, as Gustav mentioned, to underpin those critical carbon data disclosures. So the sum total, driving towards our client's outcome for a disclosure which is accurate, which is representable, and which is defensible. And the third principle is a strong future focus. Our belief is that investments made in CSRD now must continue to deliver value in the future, post-disclosure. And through this offering, the structures and the muscle memory that's built during CSRD readiness must stand towards a stronger future for our clients, and specifically, making future disclosure journeys easier and more repeatable. Seeing CSRD readiness as an opportunity to develop more robust ESG insights and driving those insights into the strategy and execution for the long term, and helping build a pathway to continue competitive advantage. This, in summary, is the core of our offering, bringing together the carbon accounting and insights rooted in deep scientific integrity from Normative, with the steer, with the guidance and the compliance from PwC, all in one unified offering for your near-term CSRD readiness and the long-term opportunity post-disclosure. So please do reach out. We would love to understand how we can support you to drive transparency, quality, coverage, and insights for your CSR readiness journey and onwards towards your path to net zero. You can book a consultation with Normative experts with links kindly provided and available on screen. So thank you for your time. And with that, I'm going to hand back to Taylor, who's going to conclude on some final thoughts about the future, compliance, and beyond. Taylor, it's back to you.
Thank you again, Ross, and thank you to all of the speakers. And I think I, as the host, have the difficult task of trying to synthesize everything that you heard, but also the exciting task to kind of take a step back for a moment and think about where we are in this bigger journey towards net zero. I think what's super important to recognize is compliance is a huge task. Completing CSRD is a huge task, and it's probably feeling like tunnel vision for a lot of people watching this webinar. And that's okay. We will get through it. There's lots of tools to get through it. But what's important to recognize is that completing CSRD reporting is not just a one and done exercise. When you're working with partners and you've got solutions that really value this transparency of the data, they give you the coverage and the quality of the data that you need to make informed decisions. And then there's this culture of innovation and of other kinds of support around reduction or around carbon removal. You're really in a position to take advantage of all that work that you've done. You didn't do it for nothing. You didn't do it just for CSRD, but you've done it to build a foundation that you can use for all sorts of other initiatives. And so I think I wanted to end on this resource. This is what we call the sustainability maturity model. It's something we use a lot internally. It's adapted from the Forrester maturity model. And what it kind of shows is the progression from being a company that is very new to this kind of reporting to a company where environmental metrics are really, really deeply integrated in all sorts of innovation and operations. And I'm not gonna talk you through this slide, don't worry, but I wanted to put it up as an opportunity to look, where do you think that you are right now? Where do you see yourself as a business? And then where do you want to be? And I think regardless of where you are, regardless of how near or far you are to CSRD reporting, that data is going to help you make a difference on this journey. It's going to move you from one step to the next, towards net zero. And at Normative, we strive to be the path to net zero for our partners. And so this is a really, really amazing way to get started with a strong foundation. And as I said, when you've done that CSRD reporting, when you have the foundation, there are so many things you can do to take advantage of it. You can make a big public commitment of your reduction target. You can build verifiable reduction initiatives. You can start investing in carbon removal. You can innovate green products. And as I think all of our speakers have said in slightly different words, you can begin to use sustainability as a competitive advantage for your business. And that's, of course, where we all want to see the world go. So with that, let us do a quick Q&A. We got a few interesting questions. One from Rachel. Rachel asked, we are finding that the scoping of international HQ'd groups, even though the 2028 year reporting is further away, is complicated to work out, unclear in CSRD, or not always aligned with financial consolidated reporting. Has Normative or PwC got any thoughts on this very first scoping step? And I think, Sam, you might be the best person to answer this one.
Thanks, Taylor. It's a great question. And I think scoping is one of the most complicated pieces of work that we do. So we have our legal team looking at the entity scoping. It's not as straightforward as it seems. And I think a lot of detailed work in that area will set you off on the right track. But I think there's complexities, as Rachel said, about the consolidations. It's not just about where your entities sit, it's about how you're reporting and how you're consolidating. It's also there's some detailed considerations about the structure of your organization and how you're setting up your operations. So it's not a straightforward exercise. That said, there are some precautionary approaches you could take to some of this. So even if you think you're on the margins of reporting, there can be benefits to being in line with CSRD on reporting. So I think scoping is important, and then a strategic discussion about what you actually want to do and whether there's, as you said, Taylor, whether there's value in doing this, even if you're not required to. You know, there's is this going to drive your business, or is this going to improve the performance of your organization financially and from a sustainability point of view? But yeah. A lot of the time, and this is, you know, as Rachel probably know from her question, a lot of the time it gets into those, we need lawyers, we need those who are doing company secretariat and organizational functions like that to really get into the details so that we can make sure we get the right answer. And this is one case where I'd always defer to our experts in-house to be able to give you a definitive answer. And I think it just touches on what Ross was saying. You know, this is a real team game here. We need the deep carbon expertise and the efficiency of the normative platform. But I need to call on my legal colleagues in ESG legal to be able to give you a definitive answer on that scoping question. And it's the same from a number of other topics around CSRD. It's a really big team that can support on that. Long answer there, Taylor, to a difficult question.
Thank you, Sam. I see a question in here on which categories are the most fraught. Like, I would love to hear it from Sam, but also Gustav, when you look at both the kind of hard data side, but also the more qualitative data side in terms of governance and the social metrics. Like, where would you spend the most attention to get things right? And Gustav, maybe we start with you this time.
Yeah, for us, I mean, our expertise is the quantitative data. So we want you to, of course, spend a lot of time to make sure that data from your side is collected in the best way possible. But also following up within the product, looking at the result of those, adding that data and the calculations behind it to see the results and the year-over-year possibilities for reduction and different scenarios. So I think that's what's most important for us.
Excellent. And Sam, do you want to take that one too?
Yeah, I think it's there's sort of two dimensions to this. I think there's some data points that are hard to get or don't exist. You know, there's areas that you're going to be expanding what you're collecting, and then there's areas that you're already collecting data where you need to provide some review and scrutiny. And I'd say carbon data is one of those areas where make sure you're getting it right, make sure you've got quality in what you're doing there, because that's an area that's going to be, you know, hopefully better informed, better populated than some other areas. The one other thing I'd say is around governance. and I think that should be core to what everybody's doing here. And there's really no excuse for any business having not got robust processes around governance and controls, and extending from your financial controls into your non-financial controls. That's something that should be within everybody's control to be able to do that. It's not a data point specific, but that's going to be part of the assurance process within CSRD. So something to really think about and something to get stuck into early on, because that'll provide the framework for everything else.
Excellent. I think a question came in from Laura. How do we create the right reporting framework so that it all comes together in a clear way that makes sense? And I think this is such a great question, because this is taking us back to first principles here. I think maybe Ross or Sam would be the best person to address this. Ross, do you want to take it first?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think a great question. And when I think about a response, I think about some of the themes and the patterns that we're seeing coming in from many of our clients. And what I would say is that CSRD will stress test even the more and most mature customers. It is an expansive and a very deep set of data points that need to be collected. So I'd maybe certainly preface with this one. Second component to answer the question is, I think, aligning to what Sam had mentioned, a real need to ensure that the right governance reporting, that structure is embedded into the journey really, really early. The CSRD fundamentally is a story about unifying and presenting a unified perspective on a whole composite set of data points right across the ESG spectrum. But building that muscle memory, setting the right structures early, both in terms of governance, but also in terms of data management and data collection practices, really, really crisp. The CSRD does define and has laid out very, very well what data needs to be collected. So the unification, the structure is there, but ensuring that muscle memory, ensuring that process, ensuring that governance is established at an early stage is critical to getting to that point of outcome, which is a unified output. But Sam, certainly would love to hear your thoughts on this one. It's a great question.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think it's probably something, so I'd agree with everything Ross has said, but I'd just also say, don't lose sight of what reporting's about. Reporting is to inform and accelerate your strategy, so you've got to have the right strategic objectives, or you have to have the narrative that amplifies your strategy and what you're trying to do and achieve, and the reporting to reflect and record the progress against that strategy. So I think when you're talking about reporting frameworks, policy, strategy, those elements are really important, essential in terms of making sure you're going in the right direction. And I say this pretty much every day, but CSRD is the tail. Okay, so we mustn't let the tail wag the dog here. We've got to be going in the right direction, having the right outcomes. CSRD is the mechanism for transparency to demonstrate that you're doing the right things and have a consistent approach in terms of how you talk about them. So I think sort of zooming back out, reporting framework's important, but strategic framework and how you then deliver those outcomes is way more important than the reporting part of it. I probably shouldn't say that, but it's really critical, and that's really the objective of this. So, Laura, I think get that reporting framework set up so that it demonstrates the great actions that I'm sure you're already taking and the progress that you're making, so that you can accelerate and amplify those actions over the coming years.
Thank you, Sam. I think let's do one lightning round. A question came in of, if you could do one thing, start with one thing to tackle CSRD first, what would that one thing be? And I'm just going to go counterclockwise. So starting with Ross, Gustav, Sam, and just give me a one sentence, and then we'll wrap up. That'll be it.
Absolutely. Take an honest appraisal of your current readiness and current place on the CSRD journey. Super important. That will be mine.
Awesome. Gustav?
Communicate within your team. Make sure that this is a team effort to get the correct data throughout your organization.
And Sam, last but not least.
Focus your reporting strategy on your strategic objectives overall. So make sure your reporting supports what you're trying to do as an organization overall. That'll be the main thing.
Perfect. So with that, my colleague Michelle is going to put up our last two slides. I get to do a teaser and a little pitch for our next month's webinar, which is how to navigate carbon emissions reduction from targets to action. And this is where we once again get to show off some of the amazing products that Gustav and his team are building. It's all that stuff that's going to make it possible for you to not just report, not just look at carbon, but actually to make a reduction in your company. And with that, thank you. Thank you again. Thank you to Sam, Gustav, and Ross. Thank you to the speakers. Thank you to everyone that attended. Thank you for all the great questions. We will, if you asked one and we weren't able to get to it, we will absolutely get back to you after this webinar. And please remember to stay on afterwards, and there will be an automatic survey. So please take a moment to complete the survey. And with that, have a beautiful Wednesday and happy spring. Happy spring. And let's end there. Best of luck with CSRD, and hope to see everyone next month. Thank you.